Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
Ready?
Yep. Let's go. Let's laugh. We are imperfect after all.
Okay. Hello and welcome to the Imperfect Us podcast. I'm Leanne Camilleri.
And I'm Lisa Downs.
As co-hosts of the Imperfect Us podcast, we will share relatable stories that celebrate that we are perfectly imperfect humans leading perfectly imperfect lives.
We will be sharing these stories through open and honest conversations with our extraordinary guests. And together we'll discover practical and evidence-based strategies that will enable us to navigate the constant challenges and changes of everyday life. We are thrilled to share these conversations as we draw on the science of wellbeing and positive psychology, and we uncover the barriers that might hold us back from being our authentic selves and turn them into opportunities so that we can show up more consistently, doing what we really aspire to do and who we want to be.
We would like to acknowledge the Wadawurrung and Kaurna people who are the traditional custodians of the beautiful lands on which this podcast is being recorded. We pay our respects to the elders past, present and emerging, and extend this respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples from other communities who are here with us today. So let's get started.
Yay! And recording.
Hello and welcome to the Imperfect Us podcast. Today we're speaking with Professor Joseph Ciarrochi, who is an active researcher, speaker and author. Passionate about psychological flexibility, or what he calls flexible strength, Joseph explores the cluster of skills that can be used to promote personal growth and build vitality and valued action to support whole human flourishing. Joseph has published over 150 journal articles and many influential books. His most recent book is due out in July 2022 and is called What Makes You Stronger? How to Thrive in the Face of Uncertainty Using Acceptance and Commitment Therapy. So let's dive in. Welcome, Joseph. We are so grateful that you've joined us today. Can you share with us what led you to the wonderful work that you do?
Yeah, well, it probably relates to the theme of the imposter syndrome. I grew up kind of in a disadvantaged environment and didn't really have very good parental support. So you could say I started out life pretty confused about things and not being very socially skilled or able to manage myself in the world. And I would look around and I assumed that everybody else was doing so much better than me. That's how it appeared to me. Mm-hmm. You know, you're poor, you're disadvantaged, you're kind of struggling, and everybody else seems to be happy, seems to have this stuff together. So a lot of my direction in this field, becoming a psychologist, is to try and figure out what I was missing. What is missing in me? What did I need to learn that they had? So that was I guess you could say it's the imposter syndrome that drove me to become a psychologist, only to discover that everybody else was struggling too. It's a bit of a disappointment when you spend all those years trying to find a way. And then, it turns out everybody else has similar issues.
That's funny, isn't it? How we always feel in our own stories that we're somehow the only ones until we become more aware and you go, oh, actually, that's part of common humanity, really.
Yeah, there's an illusion because people put their best selves forward in public. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people's lives are hidden. A lot of their struggles are hidden.
Yeah.
And you just don't know that. You just feel like you're all alone, that you are struggling and you see your struggles very clearly, but you don't see theirs. And the other thing, I guess, is that you don't see if somebody so this imposter syndrome comes in when there's this contrast with where you are and where you see other people being. And they're like so far ahead of you, so much smarter than you, so much more beautiful. They got their life more together than you. And so one reason that happens is because we're just constantly comparing ourselves to others and they're putting their best image forward. So naturally the comparison is going to be like, well, what's wrong with you?
Yeah. That comparison piece is always such a hard one, isn't it? Especially when you start listening to that self-doubt, that really big inner critic that just is a little bit too noisy sometimes when it's saying you aren't good enough. But what we've been noticing in our conversations, Leanne and I have been noticing that once you stop and have a think and reflect and use that mindfulness practice a little bit more, you're actually starting to become more aware of the things that you do that you push aside because you listen to that really horrible inner critic talking to us. So that's interesting.
Yeah, and that's a good way to describe it, like to mindfully notice it. I mean, that's the first step. So this comparison and the imposter syndrome is kind of a universal thing. So that's another one of those things you might think it's just me that feels this way, but it's absolutely not true. I've worked with people at all different levels in an organization, from chief superintendents down to sergeants, in the police force. And even when those people had succeeded again and again and got promoted again and again to the point where they got to chief superintendent, which is very hard to do in the police force because, there's so much selection, they told me that they felt more insecure than they ever had felt. So here are people who have proven themselves for decades, again and again, winning in the promotion battle. And yet when they got to the top, they still felt that insecurity. So I think the first thing we need to understand in dealing with the imposter syndrome is to recognize that this is just going to happen by virtue of being a human being, that our minds will automatically make these comparisons and judgments. You don't really turn it off. So the reason I liked you mentioning mindfulness was because this is like, you could see, well, we could have two approaches to dealing with this inner voice, or what we call the inner advisor. And that is, we could try and fight it and shut it down. Tell it to shut up. That's not true. I'm not an imposter. I'm as good as these people. And you were describing some of those, like the negative side of that, which is defensiveness, trying to prove yourself, attacking other people because you feel like an imposter. So this is like fighting your advisor. It's like you have this inner voice and you're fighting it by trying to prove yourself, by trying to make yourself look good, by refusing to take negative feedback, for example. So those are fighting the advisor. But I think the way that you suggested, which is the mindful way, it's more about kind of redirecting your relationship with it. So you kind of acknowledge, like you mentioned common humanity. You acknowledge that this is something that everybody does. Even if they don't show it, that's what they're doing. Like I guarantee you, none of the police knew that their superintendent was having these thoughts. And, so you kind of say, this is normal, and you notice it. So the first huge step is to see it. Like the minute you start to feel insecure, you don't immediately go into defensive mode, shut down, start arguing, start putting people down. Rather, you say, okay, I'm having this thought that I'm not good enough here. And that's the first huge step to getting free from it.
I guess similar to you, we have stories as young people where I guess those imposter thoughts have shown up. And, as young people, they can get really, really loud. And if we don't understand that we can turn that volume down, then we can be, I guess, deafened by that inner voice that's always telling us we're not good enough. That approach of having awareness of what's going on for us empowers us then to sort of make our choices of how we move forward. Yeah,
definitely. And seeing it, just being aware that you're having the thoughts. Because for some people, they just can't accept any sign of weakness in themselves. It's not even a weakness. We're actually saying that this is what every human being, even very strong, successful ones do. So it's not even a weakness, but being able to see it and see when it's showing up for you is the first major step. And then the next thing you do is the crucial choice point. And that is whether you fight it or learn to redirect it. And this is one of the, one of the big ideas in acceptance and commitment therapy in our approach is that it's kind of like non-resistance to force. It's a kind of approach you see in martial arts as well, where you don't oppose the force that's coming towards you. You learn to kind of flow with it and redirect it and let it be, in a sense, allow it. And this may feel like you're being passive and like you're just going to be a victim to that voice. But once you recognize that the advisor is just something in your head that's giving you advice, you don't have to listen to it. It's not you, right? I mean, you can think, I'm having these imposter thoughts again. I'm thinking I'm an imposter. I don't belong here. You can have those thoughts. So if you recognize that you can have the thoughts, then you aren't the thoughts.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're saying, I'm having these thoughts. Well, there's a you that's having them. You know what I mean? So it's not you, which means you don't have to listen to them.
One of the big things that we were talking about, Leanne and I, over the last couple of months in particular, is that fighting mentality. And there's a lot of research, and I can't for the life of me at the moment, we'll put it in the show notes of the researchers that talked about this, but they said when you fight with that voice and you really challenge that voice actually gets louder.
Yeah.
And that's why the noticing is really important, because it actually quietens the voice and it allows you to have that choice to go, actually, that's not true. And here's another way to look at it. Exactly what you said about that flow of redirecting. I love that.
Yeah.
That piece is beautiful.
Yeah, it's actually a very, like that, what you're saying is noticing and allowing is, it does quiet the voice. You're absolutely right. But if you do it to quiet the voice, then you're fighting it still. So it's, you know what I mean? So it's extremely tricky. And so how do you manage that trickiness? You know, it's like, well, I'm doing mindfulness every day, but the voice is still there, which shows that they don't have the, you know, it's the acceptance piece that's not there. I guess you're not really allowing it. You're doing mindfulness in order to control the voice. Then it's not really mindfulness. So the idea is to redirect it. And what I mean by that is that, first of all, you have to decide whatever it is you're putting yourself into, where this comparison is coming up, this painful evaluation is coming up. Is it worth it? Right. So that's the first step. We put ourselves into situations that we don't really care about, and then we beat ourselves up about it. And we don't even like this workplace. Or we don't even like this person. Why am I sitting here trying to be friends with this person still after 10 years? You know, it's like, so the big step is like, well, don't put yourself into situations where you feel like an imposter unless it's really important to you.
Yes. And then when it's really important, that's where we can flip the experience, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, once you've identified, let's say it's like getting educated at something or learning a musical instrument, those are kinds of things that bring up imposter thoughts. Anything where you're going to try and make a journey to a higher self, and you already see people at that level. You know, I'm learning a musical instrument. I already see people playing fluently, and I feel like an imposter. That's just ridiculous. Me playing like this. It's because the journey they took is invisible.
Yes.
So, and then the advisor immediately compares you, finds you to be inadequate. But if it's important, the key is to kind of this idea of not fighting those thoughts, but redirecting them. And that happens by carrying your advisor with you, those thoughts with you, as you commit to the action that's important.
Yeah.
So it's about carrying. And so redirect is kind of like, okay, I feel like I'll never be good. I can't play music. I can't hear music and just play it, for example, which has always made me feel like I lack talent. I have to really read sheet music to play it. So there's lots of things. I gave up music for a while because of that, but I've come back to it. And it is about, okay, my advisor is saying this, or my advisor might be saying, for the exercise I do, I'm too old. It says that to me all the time. So I've got imposter. I go to the gym and I feel like an imposter, you know? Because all these young people are pushing big, you know, weights and all this stuff. And I'm sitting there with the pink barbells in the corner.
Good on you.
Fighting for those pink barbells. Yes. Get away. Those are my pink barbells. But any situation where there's a contrast between you and how your advisor can compare yourself to others, you're going to get this sense of imposter. And the only cure for it's not really a cure. It's the only thing you can do is kind of one step at a time, commit to valued action, even while your advisor is saying you're too old, you lack talent, you're not good enough. And my advisor says this constantly. But by doing the action and getting better, your advisor learns that way. That's how you redirect your advisor. Your advisor needs to be exposed to new experience. It's not enough to talk to your advisor, because that's like, you know, one of these things where you're just trapped in a room with a X or something like that, and all you do is argue and nobody gets anywhere. There's nothing new coming in. It's like you're locked in this room and there's just no mirrors. There's just this dialogue between you and the person, constant fighting for eternity. And the only way to solve that is to, in this case, it's your advisor, to carry your advisor with you as you do new things that you care about. And then as you do it, you'll discover, oh, wow, you know what? I can do that. That's your advisor learning. Your advisor won't be convinced.
I love that.
But it will learn from experience.
I really love the term, the advisor. I have a name for my inner voice. She sits on my shoulder and I call her Lucy. And we were challenged at one point, you know, if we've got this, you know, inner voice that's, you know, that inner self-critic, who's our inner self-coach kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we can sort of tend to lean towards that inner critic more. But the more practice we become at, I guess, tuning into that advisor, I love that term advisor. It really means a lot to me, I think, in it just makes sense that, you know, I'm advising myself. It's okay. It's okay that we feel uncomfortable, and discomfort doesn't feel nice at times. But like if you're wanting to grow, you need to feel that, don't you?
Yeah. And that's why it's really important to ask the value question first, because a lot of times we expose ourselves to discomfort about things that we don't find important.
Yes.
We get ourselves stressed out, worked up about things that are small and not important to us. So you want to dignify that willingness to have distress with something that you value.
Mm.
And that advisor, you're talking about having that positive coach side. So in our model, which is called DNAV, so A stands for advisor. So you might try and kind of coach yourself out of a negative advisor. And you were saying, look, you're telling yourself this is normal, this is common. That's kind of advisor way. But sometimes your advisor and your inner coach, or however many voices you got in there, it just gets into a quagmire.
Yeah.
Mm.
But the great news is that as a human being, advisor space, that really verbal space you can get into, that's like your thinking self. That's just one part of you.
Mm.
And so in DNAV, there's also N, which is the noticer. And so if you're getting in this quagmire of thinking and overthinking and arguing with yourself, you could always move into noticer. And maybe you two could come up with examples of when you're in this space, but the noticer is like the experiencer of life. We're actually sensing, mindful, experiencing through your five senses and through your feelings. And it's very different from that thinking self. It's a very different world. You guys probably have examples when you're in that space, when you're totally kind of connected and in the moment.
Yeah. And I think when we are I'm not sure if I'm understanding. So I just want to make sure I am. Like the noticer, like when I notice that inner critic.
Yeah. Or it's a different space. It's like if we could do this right now and ask the audience to do it, just to take a minute to take 5 slow breaths.
Mm.
So do you want to do that now? Just to
Let's do it. I'm doing it already.
Hard to talk about. Yeah, the notice is hard to talk about because you're still in advisor space. It's advisor trying to.
Yeah.
All right. So let's just get comfortable and just want you to just slow your breathing down and just notice it, and just inhale for 3 seconds and exhale for 3 seconds. Doesn't have to be perfect. It's nice long in breaths and nice long out breaths. Now, just notice some things around you in your room that maybe you didn't notice before. And that's notice. So that's quite different, isn't it?
A lot more calm too.
I'm sorry, I'm going to bring a bit of humor here because I noticed my cobwebs in the corner.
Yeah.
Good, you did your job. Well done, Leanne.
You could probably go a whole nother year without noticing them. Now that you've done it, you're going to have to get up there and clean them after this podcast.
Got you to thank for that. Thank you.
That's still good. But I noticed your jar that says courage, I think, up on the right. So I noticed something in your. It's just peeking over the shelf. You can barely see it.
Yeah.
And I'm glad my background's blurred because I'm in my bedroom and I was noticing a lot of washing that needs to be folded.
Yeah. Welcome to the post-COVID era.
Oh, I know.
But I also noticed inside that there was some chatter going on. Oh, well, the listeners know what we're doing. Yes, this is really good.
Oh, I didn't at all.
Yeah. And
I did too. I was thinking, oh my gosh, we're doing a podcast and we're just sitting here being quiet. But that was my advisor, and I noticed my advisor, and I just said, look, just come back. And it's very hard to do nothing. So this is a very different space from the thinker, the experiencer. And that's why it's a little dangerous to talk about it a lot. And well, we wouldn't want to spend the whole podcast just breathing slowly, but we could.
It's a really important part because, I think we're pretty wired for always thinking, and then that's where that ruminating can come from too, where you're thinking about something and then you're going, are they listening? I'm not sure. Oh my God, are we doing the right thing? That's where that extra talk comes along. Yeah. Where when you're noticing, I always feel anyway that I just feel more peaceful, and there are other things that came up. Like for me, I was looking up just straight up above my screen. There's a beautiful photo of my 2 boys who are now, adults, but they're babies here. And then next to it, the picture is showing their growth chart. Oh. And I was looking at that just going, I felt so much love, which is really a beautiful experience to have in this noticing. I felt so much love looking at them going, oh my God, they were so little and now they're so big. Yeah. Like, do you know what I mean? So it's just a beautiful thing to make sure we keep doing that.
Yeah.
Probably not when you're driving a car, like, you might need to look eyes on the road perhaps, but
Yeah, but that's still noticing, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're in the middle of a footy game, playing footy, you could be noticing. So it's really, I do martial arts and box. And the biggest piece of advice I get from my coach is keep my eyes open and look, keep watching, even when you're afraid and scared. And that's when you need to watch the most. Yep. Because if you're about to be hit and you blink your eyes, you lose about a quarter of a second.
Wow.
And yeah, it's huge thing. So noticing in every sport, it's like, keep your eye on the ball. Like the most common piece of advice is that. So,
yeah.
But it's good to know that we don't just have to rely on the thinker, and that the thinker isn't the only way that we can figure things out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's such great advice. Thank you so much for that. I've written that down in capital letters.
But that's a different space. And then the last part, well, you have the DNA. So we have noticer and advisor, and then discover is a really cool space because it's a lot of ways, it's a way of getting out of the inertia and the freeze that is often caused by an overthinking advisor. So the advisor's job is kind of to keep you from making trial and error mistakes, right? It wants to keep you safe. That's the main purpose. That's why it's always comparing you to others. How are you doing? Are you fitting in? Is this person better than you? Are you adequate? That's just what it does. It's actually, its purpose is to keep you safe and connected to your social group. But it can lead to inertia when it becomes overly active and every single thing you do looks like a problem. Every option looks bad. No option looks good. I don't know if you've ever had that experience where you just felt like you couldn't move. It's like
I was just thinking, I might just add to this is that we've had a few students, young students, it's sad where they, even when you try and explain, what are your strengths and what do you see, they just go, no, I'm not, like I'm bad. And they really are stuck. And that's a real issue for young children, particularly, but for everybody. It's something that I'm hoping to be able to support that, change that, because it's so sad to see young children not like that.
Yeah. So the thing is that I guess the DNAV model shows is that you don't have to stay in the advisor space talking and being highly verbal as a way of getting out. So that inertia, that lockdown, the key is that you're able to move to other spaces. Yeah. And we talked about the noticer space. So it's like when you're in that advisor space and you're locked down, you're right, the words are so dominant and you just can't move. And it was like that, the story of that, that donkey that was sitting between two perfect bales of hay and it couldn't make up its mind which way to go.
Yeah.
And so how do you ever break that? If you think about how do you break that kind of indecision?
Yeah.
Because there's no right choice. So I'll put it to you. How does the donkey not starve?
I would never.
How does he make a choice?
Well, he does. Needs to make a choice whether he needs to go up to go to the bathroom. Perhaps it could be one.
There's that as well.
I don't know.
That's where we get to discover because, so advisor is kind of like your thinking self. Noticer is kind of your experiencing and sensing and mindful self. And discover is your doing self. It's like the one that tries things out and finds out from experience what happens.
Yeah.
So whereas advisor is trying to keep you safe from trial and error mistakes, your discover is actually making trial and error mistakes deliberately to learn.
Yeah.
And so that's why that's really kind of like leaving your comfort zone. So the donkey could have just randomly picked one of the two options and that's it. Like, because there's no amount of thinking that would have made one option better than the other. It just couldn't happen. There just wasn't. So thinking has its limitations.
Yeah.
But humans have this superpower called the discover, where you can just explore and find out. And little kids have this power that they don't really, even before they have an advisor, before 18 months, they're standing up, falling down, exploring things. They have no trouble experimenting. Whereas when you get to our age, it's more like you have to make sure you're going to look good, not make any mistakes, and do everything perfectly before you try something. You won't just do something.
From the discoverer point of view, those two bales of hay, it doesn't matter. The choice doesn't matter because we're going to learn something anyway, aren't we?
Yeah.
There's going to be a lesson. There's going to be an opportunity as well.
You're going to have experience and maybe it'll be the wrong, you won't learn. It'll be like, oh, that was a bad option. That wasn't good. But you're moving, you're not inert anymore.
Yeah.
You're changing, you're moving, you're developing, you're growing still.
And it is that growth that's so important, isn't it?
Yeah. So in the discover space, that's like, that positive psych idea of broaden and build, where you're exploring deliberately, like what a child does when they feel safe. They explore the environment, they try things, they're willing to take some risks. And so you've got DNA, which is D is like you're doing self, N is like you're experiencing self and your mindful self, and A is like your thinking self. And the fantastic news is that if you get stuck in one, you can always move to the other, and everything. So in DNA, the middle part is V, which is values and vitality. So we choose to think, notice, or discover in the service of building a life that's valued, that we care about. So that's always in the center. We don't just randomly, impulsively explore without any kind of value in mind.
Yeah.
I love that.
Well, our values really do drive us, don't they?
I hope so. I don't think they do a lot of times. I think we are driven by things that aren't valued.
Okay.
It would be nice if they did, but when you have a best-selling book called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, you know that humans are sweating the small stuff. Otherwise that book wouldn't be very interesting.
That's true.
Rarely do people ask the deeper question, what do you care about? What's important? Rarely do we ask ourselves that. We do, probably being in the profession.
Yeah.
But if you're not in the profession, people aren't asked that question. They don't think about that question. You can drift quite a long time without having asked that question.
Yeah.
And that's the question. That's the first question.
Yeah. And it's interesting when you ask people, what their values are, a lot go, and they really have I don't know, like there's a whole 1,000, a list of 1,000 words that we can choose, and I can't choose one yet. So I don't know what my values are.
Yep. That's that donkey between the bells of hair. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Because it's not necessarily that when you ask people what do you care about, that they're going to have an answer. They often don't, and maybe they shouldn't have an answer because they don't know yet. But at least it's the asking of the question that's important.
Starts the process.
So then you can discover and say, okay, I think I want to be a writer. So you start writing for 6 months and you discover I hate sitting by myself writing.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So then it's like, okay, I've discovered I don't value that. And you might be really surprised at what you end up liking. Like music for me has been a shock. Like I said, I come from a poor background, so I never learned any music as a kid. And it's been one of those things that I just naturally practice. I don't have to be forced. I don't have to force myself. And there's lots of kids like mine, for example, who don't naturally practice and they're just not into it. But that's just a discovery process. That's okay if they're not into it, and you'll see this. Musicians is really clear. Some people just naturally love to practice because they love it. And other people love to cook. My son has started cooking. And I'm like, fantastic. I would have never predicted that he'd need to try it out. Now he's cooking.
Oh,
so
awesome.
It's a lot about like finding that match between what you as a person and all the strengths and interests you have and the world. That is just a lot of experimenting because your mind can't get you there. You would never be able to reason what it is. There might be some amazing thing right now that you would just love doing, but you don't know about it.
Yeah.
Now, what if I always think this would be really sad to discover when you're like 85 or 90 that you absolutely love dancing. It'd be great that you discovered at 90, but wouldn't it be great to learn it when you're a little younger? So you can have the entire
and
life
do it for longer. Yeah.
Or whatever it is, painting or maybe just fixing things or whatever it is, like you have to just do it and experiment. And then that's how you find your match in the universe of what you're naturally drawn towards, what you're passionate about, the thing that you do that adds to your energy and doesn't take away. And that's a searching process.
I'm taken back to discover for a moment because there's those things we don't know that we don't know. And that's when we learn some of those things, that's a pretty cool thing, isn't it?
Yeah. And you don't know that's why you can't overly trust the advisor to be your advisor is trying to convince you, your thinking self is trying to convince you that it knows everything, it can predict everything, it can anticipate the future. It's very convincing. But there's a new advisor rule, which is my advisor doesn't know everything and has a lot of blind spots because it's always basing its predictions on the past. So If you've been in a series of difficult relationships that ended in breakup, then your advisor will predict that you'll never be in a relationship.
Mm.
And that work that Brene Brown has done, showing that the difference between people who find love and those who don't isn't the ones, they have all had a series of difficult relationships, but it's the ones that keep going, that are willing to be vulnerable and not give up, that eventually find it. In other words, they were willing to disregard their advisor and its predictions. So when it comes to love, every experience until you find your soulmate, I guess this is a romantic thing to say, but every experience prior to that is a failure experience. And so your advisor would never predict that you would find a soulmate.
Yeah.
Such a beautiful way to say that. And why that sort of stands out for me is I've got a friend going through a similar thing at the minute where she continually says, I won't find love because my past says that. Yeah. And I said, what makes you say that? What's the evidence in that? And she keeps saying, but this has happened, this has happened, this happened. And I will say, well, what if? Yeah. But she's just locked in, and I just go, oh, interesting. So that same pattern does. And that's that advisor. I love it. I'm going to tell her it's the advisor next time I see her.
But you're also in advisor space. Don't forget there's two of you. So you're both in advisor space. Right. So when you ask what the evidence is, and that's fine. That will work sometimes. Some people say, oh, you're right, there isn't any evidence. But sometimes there is a ton of evidence. Like there is, like she literally has something, and then her advisor will be telling her that she's broken somehow, and that there's something wrong with her, or for some reason she makes bad choices, or there's no good partners out there. We've all been there. It's like, where's all the good people? Maybe, like that's where Discover is so tough. Like actually doing things where there's a chance for her to meet somebody. Even when her advisor is saying you got no chance. That's the move. That's the hardest. That's why Discover's actually sounds really cool and fun and awesome.
It does sound cool.
But it's actually very stressful, because what you're doing, remember, your advisor's job is to keep you safe. It's a don't get killed machine. It's trying to keep you safe. What you're doing in Discover space a lot of times is kind of saying, I'm going to go ahead and disregard your advisor. It'd be like you're driving your car, and your car would be going, the GPS would be going, don't go this way. There's a nuclear waste here. Don't do it. And you'd still have to. So Discover involves, being willing to leave your comfort zone. And it's actually quite distressing. And so it's willing to have distress. What Brene Brown talks about, that willingness to have vulnerability, to risk the chance for love again and be rejected again. I mean, could happen again. So you don't want to ask, if somebody's gone through a bunch of bad relationships, they will have evidence.
I she does.
I mean, she probably loves you and knows that what you're trying to do, and then but she just can't find it. She probably has had good relationships. It might work. Like the thing about advisors, it's not a bad thing to be in that space. It could be good, but it's just that it just gives you options, I guess. So you're not like having to win that argument. If it's not going to work, then you could go somewhere else. You can say, well, look, let's just assume it was possible. I mean, okay, let's say your advisor's right. Okay, well, your advisor wins the prize. Okay, you've got all the proof in the world that you're completely unlovable and nobody will ever love you and all the men are crap. Okay, so good. So what can we do if we just assumed as an act of faith that this is possible? What actions might you take if you just assumed it was possible? And are you willing to take some of those actions? Acknowledging that your advisor says it's a waste of time and all that stuff. Yes. Totally agree with that. But we could try it, just be an experiment.
Yeah. And it is that word, isn't it? That experiment is so important.
Yeah.
Because that's where you get to go, oh God, that didn't work. Okay. How can I adapt? How can I change? Do something different? Maybe just tweak this part, tweak that. Let's have another, failed again. Oh, well, never mind. It's that first attempt in learning again. Okay, maybe I'll just have another go.
Exactly.
Yeah. I really like that Discover piece. That's a really good one.
And the key for Discover is staying open to feedback. So there's a lot of talk about grit and persisting. And I think that is an important attribute, but sometimes we have grit and persist in bad relationships for too long. You know what I mean? So there is a kind of Discover is about being open to feedback and seeing this is working, this isn't working. Is this working? Is this making my life better, more energetic, more vital?
Well, I guess how the advisor probably plays there is when we talk about grit, I guess there's that inner knowing. We're striving for a master's degree, for example. You'll keep going at it. You keep trying, you keep applying, doing all these things. Even though that advisor might be saying, oh, you're not good enough, or, whatever, something inside says, keep going. But if for some reason it becomes evident that that's not going to happen, there's some real strong evidence to say it's not going to happen, but I keep striving towards that with that grit, then I guess there's that awareness. I guess listening to the advisor, understanding the truth. Does that make sense? Yeah.
I mean, that's the art of living. There's no clear rule about when to keep persisting and when to let go. And it happens, I think people tend to stay in bad relationships a little too long. I know there was this really interesting study where they looked at people who were thinking about leaving their career or leaving their job. And it's on the Freakonomics page, a bestseller. And you went on the page and you flipped a coin. And if it came up heads, you gave up your job. And if it came up tails, you kept your job. And so people committed to doing that. And they did it. And so half the people quit their jobs. And then they went back and followed them up later. And the people who quit were happier than the ones who hadn't. So it was, like jobs are like that. There's an inertia and like the cost of trying something new seems too great. So a lot of times we do persist too long at things, but I can't give you a rule about how you know when it's too long or not. I mean, it always seems obvious when you see a couple that's incredibly struggling and fighting all the time. It seems obvious from the outside that, geez, you guys need to go your separate ways. But even there, it's complicated because couples can look like they fight all the time, but actually be quite happy. And then they can they can be very quiet and polite and nice to each other and absolutely hate each other. And it can be the most dysfunctional thing in the history. So it's hard. It may depend on whether they're Italian or not. As to
There's a lot of complexities there, isn't there?
It's right. I think living is more of an art than a science.
I like that.
Certainly is.
Joseph, I'd really love to understand how this fits with what you call flexible strength.
Okay, so that DNAV, discover, doing, noticing, experiencing, and advising, are different spaces we can move between to build value, DNAV. And flexible strength is being able to persist, just what we were talking about, as something that we care about and is important, or let it go and change. When doing so builds value. So it has both persistence and change. So letting go, often, that's why it's called flexible strength, because a lot of strength, like in the martial arts, comes with non-resistance to force, of not trying to oppose the force. But in our culture, we're taught that things like acceptance and letting go and non-attachment are passive and weak. And so even things like self-compassion, you mentioned that earlier, it sounds like you guys have talked about that previously, is seen as weak. Being kind to yourself is seen as weakness. So flexible strength is about recognizing that both that direct taking action, persisting, being tough as nails, and then being willing to be pliant and letting go sometimes are both different sides of strength. And that's the flexible part, persisting or changing and letting go in the service of value.
Again,
it's knowing when, isn't it?
And
knowing when to ask for help too. Like that letting go, I keep thinking of the same principle where if it's just too hard and you don't have that skill and then you keep going, I'm going and going to try. Well, there might be a point where you need to let go and go, I'm actually not getting there. So either change by saying, I need help from someone or some coaching or something else. Or that's just not my gig, whatever it might be, as an example. And it's so important to get to that point where you again, it's pretty normal. We can't do everything well.
And we have a whole line of research looking at that. You're absolutely right about help seeking. That it's one of those paradoxes, and there's humans do a lot of paradoxical, strange things. One of them is that the more you need help, the more you could use help, the less likely you are to seek it. A similar one is the more stressed out and busy you feel, the less likely you are to engage in self-care.
That's true. That's so it's like,
true. Humans are very paradoxical that way. I mean, an animal will rest if it needs to rest. Humans will say, I need to cut down on my sleep and push myself even harder and harder and harder. Called strange.
Not me. I'm a sleep queen, I have to say.
Oh yeah, I love it. I love the very brief nap. I'm now doing these 20-minute naps in the middle of the day. I just put the timer on. It's brilliant.
I'm in awe of you and Susie Green. She's the same, has a little nap time. And I was saying to her the other day, I'm just in awe of people who can do it. I just can't do it. I've tried.
Are you saying it's like a skill or something? It's like, so taking a nap is something that's awe-inspiring. That's fantastic. That's great. At least I don't have to do something like, risky or scary, but it does feel risky or scary, I guess, when you're so busy. So it's about, you time yourself 20 minutes, and it's a nice self-care activity, and you don't get so asleep that you can't wake up. It kind of just perfect.
I'm going to try it. I'm going to put it in as my little self-care challenge. See.
Yeah. But isn't that interesting that for humans, it's a massive challenge to have a nap.
Yeah, I know.
And doing all the hard, stressful stuff is the natural, easy thing. That's crazy.
Flip that. All right, I'm on a mission. I'm going to let you know how I go, Joseph.
Yeah, we want to hear about your nap schedule.
I know.
You get one of these. It's an Aura ring, and it measures how well you sleep. And
where? Yes. I haven't got one of those. An Aura ring.
It's really quite accurate in terms of, like, I look at this every morning when I wake up to see how good my sleep was. Right. And if I'm in the 80s, I'm fine. So it gets a score from 1 to 100. And if I'm like in the 60s or 70s, I know I'm going to have a hard day. I'm going to be tired and irritable. I'm going to know why. I'm going to feel pessimistic. I'm going to know why. So it's really helpful.
Sleep does play a big part in all of this, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That whole rest and recovery certainly impacts how we see the world.
Yes.
And experience it.
I might be thinking, why does life suck so much? And why does the future hold so, I got a 70 on my sleep score. Now it's really good to know the origin. Like if I have an 88 and I'm thinking those pessimistic thoughts, then I'm worried. But
isn't it funny that you've got the score of it? Like for me, the measure that I use is I have a little sleep app thing on my phone. Yep. And if I haven't had a good 8 hours sleep, I know if I've had 7 hours, I'm a grumpy bum in the morning, really grumpy. Yeah. And I know that. So then I have to go, okay, I work with young kids. I'm really not showing up as grumpy because that's not cool. So I have to really work hard to get myself in that space. But anything 8 hours or more, not a problem.
Yeah. Okay. So it's just a time thing. I noticed, that the same 7 hours or 6 hours can have very different quality.
Yeah.
And you start to see those things. It's again, just, I guess, we're getting a little bit, we're going into sleep now. So that's good. We had more than one topic. There's more than one topic. 2 topics.
We're going through just being a little bit rogue today, which we quite like and enjoy, especially with the flow of the conversation. So I guess for us, based on all of the conversations that we've had today, Joseph, is that can you recommend any apps or a book or a podcast or TED Talk, something that our listeners might like to find out a little bit more about?
Yeah, I mean, look, we have a new book coming out called What Makes You Stronger. And that'll be out in a few months. I mean, obviously, since I wrote that and spent the last 3 years thinking about it, that's what I would recommend. But it's because
so you should.
Louise Hayes and I have been working on it for ages, and we've been working together for over a decade. And I really, it's beautifully illustrated. We've really poured our love and our energy into it. I think people will like it. And that's, I guess, what I'd recommend. And you can find out more about this at our website, DNAV International, DNAV International.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. We'll be sure to share that in the show notes.
Okay. Thank you.
And I notice also on your website, you have some really good resources. I noticed the body scan on there and the tin can monster, which is interesting. So but I think they're really useful.
Yeah. So that's on josephciarrochi.com, and it says under free stuff. And Tin Can Monster is great. It's like a mindfulness exercise where instead of seeing something like stress as this big, overwhelming monster, what you do is it's an exercise where you look at the parts of stress. Where do you feel it in your body? Where do you feel it in your arms and your head? And when you break it down like that, it doesn't seem so overwhelmingly big. Yeah. It's a really nice exercise, originally from the Steve Hayes original ACT book.
Oh. There's going to be a pool of riches in those 2 websites for people to explore. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
I feel like we've sort of covered this last question, but I'm going to ask it anyway, just in case we can squeeze one more out of you.
Sure.
We'd like you to share with our listeners today a self-care strategy that you think they might enjoy.
Oh, well, I do recommend the midday nap if it's possible, a 20-minute recorded nap. For me, what's really important is that every day you do something, you're doing something that you feel like is for yourself. Like if you feel like your entire life is sacrifice and you're not doing anything for yourself, then that's when you'll start to kind of overeat or overdrink or let your health go. It's really important that you end the day with, like, I did something for myself. And so I can't say what that activity looks like for you. Some of the things I do, people would think just looks like work, like practicing my instrument. An hour and a half looks like work to some people. Yes. But whatever it is that you do that relaxes you or gives you more energy. So the paradox that doing something gives you more energy, I recommend making sure to prioritize that, whatever that is.
It is such great advice, because I know that just doesn't happen for everybody. Yeah. And like you said before, other things come up for work or whatever reason. And so we prioritize that. And then we feel so drained and think, oh, why didn't I do that? Making time is already.
That's another thing I would warn people about, that one. It took me forever to restart my exercise program because I thought I didn't have time. And not having time is the major, major barrier for people who are active and do a lot at work. But the paradox is the more I've engaged in self-care, like that 20-minute nap, the more effective I am at work.
Yeah.
So you can actually get to a point where because you're never doing anything for yourself and you're always doing things for what you think is for other people, that your productivity, even though you don't notice, it's slowing down, you're burning out, and you're actually incredibly ineffective. I actually think you'd be more effective to take an hour for yourself and work an hour less. And during those hours you work, you're so much more effective than to try and sacrifice all the things you care about in order to work.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things I would encourage people to be a discoverer about. And just because for years I did not let myself do these activities because I felt like oh my gosh, I wouldn't have enough time. Things will get behind and I won't get promoted. I won't get that job. I won't, and I had all these fears. And when I experimented and finally started just doing it, like exercising regularly, I found I did have the time, and it made me that much better. When I was working, I was that much more productive.
Yeah. Joseph, we're so grateful for the time that you've spent with us today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, he is the most wonderful human. My goodness me.
What a conversation.
Oh, I love that. Every minute of it. You should see my notes one day. I'll have to take a screenshot and share to all of our listeners about my amazing. That advisor role, I think that's something that I'd really want to take on. Is it's just an advisor.
Yes.
And when you see it as the advisor, it's so much more. For me, it's that mindfulness piece where you can actually just stop again and observe and go, well, hang on a moment. You're just advising me, but thank you again. Back into the back seat again.
Yeah.
And then I'm able to, have that choice as to, is it something I need to be really aware of, or is there a choice for me for learning? And then I can put in that discover piece. I love that.
Yeah, all very relevant. And, that discover side of things, I found myself reflecting on that and the growth that we're experiencing through this research, and just noticing, that increased self-awareness that we're experiencing and the ability to sit with that discomfort, even though that advisor might be telling us, you're no good, you can't do it. It's, understanding that it's there, but also understanding that I need to step into that discovery space to be able to grow, to move past that fear and that inner critic and that self-doubt, all of that stuff that plays.
To discover that you could actually bring you a lot of joy into something that you hadn't noticed before. That's the part that I love, is that learning and growth. But imagine discovering that you had a talent that you had no idea about. No, I'm serious. I'm not joking, really.
Yeah.
Is that, it is. Sometimes we go, oh, I couldn't do that. There's that advisor saying that you can't do it. Yeah. But then maybe if you had a little go, you might go, actually, I can get into my flow here. And I had no idea that that's my true authentic strength that I have that I never ever thought I had. I love that's that learning piece, isn't it? That learning and growth.
There's just so much learning.
But that doing part, that thinking self, I love that too, because it is that the advisor is the one that's doing all the thinking for you if you allow it, rather than changing it over. I love the donkey in the hay bales. That's going to sit with me. I've seen that image before, but I think I'm going to put that in my room or somewhere close by, maybe a vision board or something, to remind me that you have a choice, especially in that discover phase where I can choose to sit here and do nothing and nothing's going to happen.
That's right.
Or I can choose to, which way do I want to go? I just have to try that way. Well, that didn't work, so try the other side.
Yeah.
Choice.
Yeah.
Learn from it, experience it, didn't work, move forward.
Yeah.
Find another way.
I always feel when we finish our conversations, I just finish feeling like I need to talk more to that person.
I know. And I do hope that we can, especially when his new book comes out. It's a fantastic book. I think if we can get him back to talk a little bit more about that in depth, because I think even just today with the DNAV, we'll put that in the show notes for everybody, that process and just that whole curiosity piece being there. You know, like a little bit like what we talked about with David Clutterbuck in Coming to the Edge, having the courage to and the curiosity to really have a go at discovering what else is there for me. Is there a different opinion to the advisor? It's that doing part. What can I do to change the advisor?
Well, that's
another episode.
That's
but what a
another one.
wonderful man. So thank you, Joseph. Thank you for listening to the Imperfect Us podcast. As always, we are extremely grateful for our executive producer, Brenton Ainsworth, for helping us to put this episode together and the incredible music throughout the show.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with someone you care about. And we would be grateful if you could rate this podcast on iTunes. If you know someone who has a great story to share about how to live with imposter thoughts, then please get in touch with us. To find out more about Leanne and Lisa, we welcome you to connect with us on LinkedIn and our socials. Bye for now.
Bye for now.